and I'll try to talk in English so that if I want to use this somewhere else, I can easily. Okay.
हमको इंग्लिश नहीं आती. My English is weak.
But you can understand English, right?
ना.
All right. I'll
मेरे को
continue in English.
मेरे को मराठी आती है.
I'll continue in English.
Okay, no
And
worries.
if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or interrupt me anytime.
Sure, sir.
So before we start, what do you know about AWS EC2? Why do you want to learn it?
Like I don't know much about it, but with my experience and my point of view, what I usually know about AWS, that AWS is used for hosting and web services, and web services means that cloud serving and all. That's all I know about AWS.
What is cloud serving?
Cloud serving is like a storage room for your websites and your files, and so basically storage for your whatever the servicing you are using. It's causing a
Is it like
server
a
which
hard disk?
uh, now it's not kind of hard disk. It's kind of a server which storing your websites. It's kind of like online disk. It's kind of online storage.
So is it a virtual hard drive?
Yeah, right.
All right. Uh, let's go to AWS. So AWS is just a service provided by Amazon Web Services. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And the uh, most basic usage of the reason why most people use AWS is to create their own servers. Now, what is a server? It is, you can think of a server as a CPU. All right. So a cloud server is a CPU in the cloud. And what is cloud? Cloud is basically another CPU that is kept in some data center in some building owned by Amazon, and it is connected to the internet. So what that means is if you are buying a cloud server from AWS, you are actually getting access to a physical machine that is kept somewhere in the data center of an AWS uh, warehouse. Does that make sense?
So it's physical, not virtual, right?
So at the end of the day, every device you are accessing is a physical device, but because you are accessing it virtually over the cloud, over the internet, it is called a cloud server. But every server has a physical location as well.
Okay, right. Okay, I
Does
got
that
it.
make sense? So
Yes,
because
yes.
you're accessing it virtually, it is called a virtual server or a cloud server.
Right, right.
When you are
Got it.
accessing your computer, you are accessing it physically in the physical real world. But when you're
Hmm.
accessing a cloud server, you're accessing it in the cloud on the internet, over the internet. But it does have a physical location in some data center or warehouse of Amazon's. It is located, it is situated. It is just connected to the internet, and you can access it from anywhere, basically. Okay.
Okay, okay, sure, sir.
So the most common use of AWS that every startup, every developer wants to do is, how do I host my website on cloud server, on AWS cloud server? Okay.
Hmm.
And that's what we are going to learn today. In the next, I'll try to keep it short and wrap this up in the next 20 minutes. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Now, first of all, obviously, you'll have to create an account on AWS.
Hmm.
Uh, when you do it, it is super easy process. But at the end, it will ask you to give your debit card details, credit card details.
Right,
It is
right.
not possible right now to access to create an to complete the sign up process without getting a card, your card details filled in. So please make sure you have card details ready. If you don't, you will have, I mean, that is a condition that it employs. There are also some free server providers, and I think Heroku has closed that down. Heroku had a free service provider server, but there is also DigitalOcean, which gives you a lot of free credits where you can. It is basically an AWS competitor. All right.
Okay, okay, right.
So DigitalOcean is easier for newcomers. AWS is more convenient for startups and companies who want an integrated environment. But we will stick to AWS today.
Okay, sure, sir.
Uh, when you sign in to AWS, you are given $300 worth of credits. What that means is, when you are buying a server, when you are creating a server, you need to pay for it, and AWS gives every new account $300, so you can spend it for creating new servers and so on. If you are registered startup, then AWS gives an extra $1,000 worth of credits, which can easily last you anywhere between 8 months to 2 years.
So is there any
But
fixed?
for an educational purpose, sorry,
Sorry, continue.
Abhinav, your voice is breaking.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes,
What I was like asking, ki, is there any fixed amount for serving?
yes. So I'll get to it right away. Okay.
Okay, right.
So as soon as you sign in, you will see this kind of interface. The interface may be different because AWS keeps changing the interfaces. But what you need to remember is EC2 is their cloud server provider, major, most common server provider. Okay. So AWS provides hundreds of other services for startups to automate the entire DevOps, to manage the entire DevOps is developer operations, I think. DevOps, uh, full form, not sure. Development operations, yes. So to manage all your development needs, AWS has these many services. So for each one of these, if you click on all services, you will realize for from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, we have services till X. Okay.
Right, sir.
So you don't need to worry about any of it right now. We will only learn how to host our website on AWS. So even if the interface changes, all you have to do is search for EC2 and click on it. So it says right here, virtual servers in the cloud, right? And this is exactly what you want.
Right, sir.
Go to EC2. Now, don't need to worry about all this just now. What you need to do is launch an instance. What that means is create a new instance. To get started, launch an Amazon EC2 instance. I'll click on launch. It will give me two options: launch instance, launch from template. Don't worry about all this. We'll go
From
from scratch. We'll build this from scratch. So launch instance. When you are setting up a new computer, when you are creating a new, buying a new computer, what do you look at? Its operating system, its CPU, its storage, its RAM, right?
Hmm.
So Abhinav, your voice is breaking a lot when you're speaking. So uh, did, can you repeat what you said?
Audible? Hello,
So
hello.
yes, your voice is breaking a lot. Please go ahead.
कुछ नहीं सर बोलिए बोलिए.
चलेगा, ठीक है. तो when you click on launch an instance, it will give you the option to select the OS image. So most common OS image is Ubuntu. Most servers, most popular Linux operating system is Ubuntu, and that's what most people use to set up their first server. You can obviously go ahead with Windows, Mac, or Amazon Linux as well. Amazon Linux is AWS's operating system, default operating system, but I would prefer you go with Ubuntu. Have you ever used Ubuntu?
Yeah, I have used it for using Linux.
Sure, that's
Virtual
exactly
machines
right.
basically.
Okay, so most people choose Ubuntu. We will also choose the same. You can, if you have experience with some other OS, please go ahead and choose some other. But you need command line in you will. So since it is a virtual machine, you will never get a monitor with it. It is just a CPU. When you are accessing a
Right.
CPU, you use command line interface. It looks something like this terminal. So
Right, sir.
it is very important that you know the basic commands of this such a command line interface. If you don't, you can go ahead and search Ubuntu CL command line cheat sheet. This will give you the most basic commands that are used to operate a computer using just a command line interface, just a terminal window, instead of a GUI where you can see the entire screen. So I think this is not cool. Let me go to images. Mm, PWD, LS, ENV, no. All right. This might make sense. this. So you can go ahead and explore some of these cheat sheets, and you'll know the basic commands. The most basic commands are ls to see which files and folders are present in the current location. If you want to see your current location, the command is pwd, which shows you where you are exactly. So I'm at Pankaj Baranwal underscore M1 level. If I click on ls, if I type ls, I'll see all the files and folders present here. If let's say I want to go inside my documents folder, I will use cd command, cd to go inside whichever folder I want. As soon as I do, as you can see, it added documents. Now if I press pwd, it will show me that I'm inside documents folder, which is inside Pankaj M1. If I want to see all files and folders here, I can click ls, and it will show me that there are 4 folders in documents. All right, and
Yes,
the
right, sir.
it goes on and on. One important command is when you have to edit some file, instead of accessing a folder, for example, uh, cd temp pem. All right, so we are in another location, which is temp projects, which is inside workspace folder, which is inside Pankaj Barwal M1. In this temp projects folder, we have an a.html file. Let's say you want to edit this file. The default editor in most Linux systems is Nano. Nano is a text editor, more like Notepad in Windows, but this is a command line interface. So if you go to Nano and type the file name, it will open the file in your terminal window. So it is empty. Let me open some file which has content, a.xml. There we go. So I opened a.xml file, and as you can see, there is a lot of content here. And since this is not a GUI, this is CLI, your mouse will not always work. You will have to move using arrow keys on keyboard. If you want to exit this, there will not no be no cross button. If you press cross, it will actually close your computer's terminal. If you want to close the this text editor, the shortcuts are provided here. Control X for exit, and so on. So if I press Control X, it will exit. All right. If you want to create a new file, you simply do the same thing. Nano abhinav.html. You can write whatever you want. Then to exit, you press Control X, Y to save, enter. Now, if I press ls, you will notice that abhinav.html is right here. Okay.
Right, sir.
To if you feel that I am bombarding you with too much information, inform me. But this is a crash course to get you set up with AWS, and
Right, sir.
for that you need some CLI expertise, and that's why I gave you a crash course. These are the most basic commands you will need: ls, cd, pwd, and nano.
Right, sir.
Right. For more commands, you can follow the cheat sheet. I'll go back to AWS. So we have chosen Ubuntu as the server. Then it asks us to choose which Ubuntu server we want, which Ubuntu OS do we want. I personally prefer 20.04. This is an Ubuntu version. So if you are using Ubuntu right now in your computer, you will notice that even its version is uh, download. How do I download Ubuntu desktop? So the latest version is 22.04, but I prefer 20.1 just because it was the last version I used myself. Okay, feel free to use the latest one as well. It will be the absolute same. And what you'll notice is it gives you all the details. It is an x60, it is a 64-bit computer, just the way CPU is, right? So it gives you all the information. Then it asks you the architecture, whether you want 64-bit or something else. Always choose 64-bit x86. Then it will ask you instance type. This is the most important question. It means what kind of CPU do you require, what will be its memory, what will be its speed, what will be the core number of cores. So you see core i3, core i5, core i7, right?
Right.
So the most basic version is a T2 micro instance. This is a terminology used by AWS. If you click on this drop down, you'll notice we have my T2 micro, T2 small, T2 medium. And if you look at the difference, you'll notice T2 micro has a storage space of 1 GB. So this is not RAM. This is your hard disk. It has a 1 GB hard disk. So Ubuntu can run on literally 500 MB worth of memory. So If you are creating a very small server, let's say a static one page WordPress website, a T2 micro instance is more than enough. If you are building a bigger website like Beyond Exams, I think we run on T2 large, and that too with around 32 GB worth of memory. Okay. So
Hmm.
the cost increases significantly, as you will notice. They charge you almost $0.1 per hour. All right.
Right, sir.
If you are choosing a T2 large, but T2 micro, it is free tier eligible. What that means is you can set up one T2 micro instance for free, no
Hmm.
cost. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we will choose T2 micro. What that means is my operating system is Ubuntu 20.04, 64-bit architecture, storage space is 1 GB, and there is only one core. When you select T2 large, there are two CPUs, two cores. When you select T2 extra large, it says we have eight CPUs, eight cores. All right, and so on. I'll select T2 micro. Now key pair login. So your computer has a username and password, right? Which
Hmm.
you enter to log in. Similarly, a cloud server, in a cloud server, to access the cloud server, you need to SSH into it. Now, SSH is just like logging in, but you log in using secure shell. This terminal, it is called a shell, and SSH is a way to securely log in into the shell. So which shell? The cloud server's shell. The cloud, to access your cloud server securely, you need to SSH into it. And to sec- to SSH into your cloud server securely, you need a key pair, a, a key that you need to unlock and access your server. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'll repeat. We chose the operating system, we chose the storage requirements. Now we will set the login credentials. And for cloud servers, the credential is the key pair name. So I'll select a new key pair. Let's name it Abhinav Demo. RSA, no need to understand all this. I'll select PEM. If you are using a Linux machine, for example, Mac OS or Ubuntu, please use PEM file, private key file format. If you're using on a Windows computer, use PPK, because Windows supports PPK much more easily. Okay, I'll create PEM file because I'm using Mac. So create key pair. Now this key pair is your key. This will never be recovered if you lose it. And if somebody else has this PEM file, they will be able to access it very easily. Okay.
Hmm.
So please keep it
Yes.
safe and download it, and don't share it with anyone unless you trust them. You don't need to, worry about much else. This is simply saying allow SSH traffic. Allow allow SSH secure login from anywhere. You can choose it to your own IP so that only your computer can access this terminal. But for now, we'll choose it from anywhere so that if you change your Wi-Fi connection, you can still access it. Don't worry about that a lot. Now, since we are gonna set up a website on this server, we need to allow HTTP traffic and HTTPS traffic. So the way it works is, your computer right now, the computer you're using, it is not accessible from the internet, right? Nobody can access your computer directly. You need team viewer or any desk or something else. Correct?
Right.
So how can I access a cloud computer but not your computer? The reason is ports. Your computer has something called port, and the way a country has ports near the seaside, right? And when some other country wants to access, let's say US wants to come to India and supply some material, what it does is it accesses one of the ports, let's say Mumbai ka port, and in Mumbai's port, they will land their ship and enter India, right?
Hmm.
In the exactly similar scenario, when you want to access a cloud server, you need access to one of its ports. If you want admin access, you will need to securely log in using SSH. So SSH is a for SSH enabled cloud servers, the port is 22. When you say allow SSH traffic, what AWS Amazon does is, in one of its CPUs, in one of its cloud servers, it will open port 22 so that you can access it. Does it make sense?
Makes sense.
A little complicated?
Nah, it's good.
Okay, similarly, if you are hosting your website on your server, so what you are simply saying is anywhere, anyone from all over the internet should be allowed to access that website that is hosted on your cloud server, right?
Right.
So you need to open a port which gives access of your website to everybody else. And that port is HTTP and HTTPS port. This is for HTTP port, I think it is uh, 80 80 port you need to open on your cloud server, and for HTTPS it is 443. So you may have heard these two terms numbers, you may not have, but 80 is the port for HTTP. That's why all websites, even on your local host, are hosted on port 80. Do you remember that?
Yes, right, sir.
Yes, so this is the reason behind it, because 80 is HTTP and 443 is HTTPS. So here, what we are saying is allow HTTPS traffic from the internet, that is open port 443 for everyone. Similarly, open port 80 for everyone. That's it. Everything else is fine. Configure storage free tier itna, 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 and so here we are, it is saying okay, by default we are only being given 1 GB of, okay, I made a small mistake. This 1 GB memory is 1 GB RAM and not hard disk. Here T2 micro, we said that 1 GB of uh, hard disk space is available, right?
Right.
I was incorrect. This is 1 GB of RAM. In T2 large, we are getting 8 GB worth of RAM. Okay.
Okay, right, right, right. Got it.
For hard disk, since you can extend your hard disk a lot more, right? You need a bigger
Right.
hard disk. So Amazon gives you the ability to add more add hard disks at the bottom. Configure storage. You can have 8 GB worth of storage, or 16 GB worth of storage, or 32 GB worth of storage, up to you. But 8 GB is good enough to start. Okay. That's it. No need to look at the advanced settings. If you have done this much, it will give you the details here. We are using Ubuntu 20.04 operating system. It is a T2 micro instance with 1 GB of RAM. We have set up a new security group called Abhinav Demo, and the volume, the storage space is 8 GB. Let's, so it says here in your first year includes 750 hours of T2 micro instance. So you can use this T2 micro instance for 750 hours for free, and 750 hours is 30 days. So I think what it is saying is it is free only for 1 month, is I think what it is saying. But you have already have $300 in your account when you start up, so it is more than enough. I launched this instance. What AWS will do now, successfully initiated launch. Let's click on this instance, and what you will notice now, let's close all this. Open, go to AWS default. Now if I search for EC2 and go to running instances, what you will notice is a new instance will have appeared with no name, obviously, but this will have your Abhinav underscore demo key file. There we go. Key pair file name is Abhinav underscore demo. So you now have access to a remote AWS server, and it was this easy. We already have 20 in 20 minutes. You have set up your own cloud server on AWS. Now to access this server, you need its public IP. Let's go ahead and open it right now. What you'll notice is it is not connecting, and the reason for that is very similar simple. You have not set up any website, nothing here, right?
Right,
So it is
sir.
not open, but soon we will. So let's copy this. We already have our Abhinav demo. I'll shift it to a better location, workspace, PM file. Now one um, now to SSH, I will open my terminal. Now I'm going to access this remote server that AWS I have set up on AWS. So for that, the command is SSH hyphen I. After hyphen I need to give it the location of my PEM file. Why the PM file? Because that is the key, that is the key that will give me access to that server, right? So
Right.
I'll go to Abhinav demo, and usually this is in inverted commas. Write it in inverted commas, and then I need to type the username and IP. So Every computer, when you are logging in, you need the username and password, right?
Hmm. Right, right.
So the username for an the default username for an Ubuntu system is Ubuntu. Its password is kept in this PM file. But because you are accessing a remote server, you need to also give the IP of the remote server to the SSH
Okay,
command. So the
got
command is SSH hyphen I. Hyphen I is used to inform the command that, okay, I'll be giving the PM file next. Then you give it the name, username that you want to access, login as, and finally the IP where the server is located. When I press enter, this will not work. And the reason it is not working is it says permission denied. Since it is a secure server, your key needs to also be secure. And for this, you will need to change the permission of the key. Let me show you how it's done. It's not complicated. We are almost getting to the end. Okay. Don't worry. So I told you a command ls, right?
yes.
What is ls command used for? Do you remember?
Uh, yes. To show all the files.
To list all the files.
Hmm. Right.
Now, um, do you know about read and write permissions? Some files are write protected, so you can't write it. You can only read it. Do you know that?
Yes, right, sir. I know.
Some files are read only, some files have read and write both access. So since this is a command line interface, when you have Windows computer, you simply right click on the file, click on properties, and you get the permissions, right? It is read only or not. But since
Mhm.
this is a
Right.
command line interface, how do you know the permissions of a file? The command is ls hyphen a. No, ls hyphen al. So as soon as you use this parameter ls hyphen al, what happens is it still lists down all the files. Look at it: dstore bbb, dstore bbb. Can you see?
Yes, right, sir.
So it's the same thing, but it is showing it as a list format now, and it is showing a bunch of other things as well. For example, when was this file created, who created it, who has access to it, and a lot of other things. Okay.
Hmm.
On the very left is the permission that this file has. For example, this all the files here have read permission only. But if I look at Abhinav demo, it has read plus write access. There are some other keywords present here which you don't need to worry about, but you can see R and W.
Hmm. Right.
That means Abhinav demo is writable. That means anyone can change this file. And and since anyone can change this file, this is not a secure file. So what we need to do is change its permission. The command for changing permission is chmod change. I don't know what the full form is. So chmod, and the right permission is, I think, 400. Let me quickly cross check. Yes, 400. 400 means I'll show you what happens when I do this. Now, if I press ls-al again, what you'll notice is look at Abhinav underscore demo. Okay, follow this line. What are the permissions now? It is
Only
only
read.
read permission. So what this sudo chmod 400 did was 4 removed the write access. How did it do it? For this, you will have to read a little more about what these things are. Chmod permissions. You will find out exactly what I did. But what I basically did was change the write access to only read access. Okay.
Mhm. Right, sir.
Now if I run the ssh command again, ssh hyphen I, my password, my username, the IP of my remote server. If I run this again, immediately, welcome to Ubuntu 20.04. Do you remember we logged in the 20.04? We installed 20.04 Ubuntu operating system,
Right, sir.
right? And
Yes.
earlier, my terminal's username was Pankaj Bananwal M1 Pankaj MacBook. This was my computer. But
Hmm.
now
Right.
it is saying Ubuntu IP 172.3.1.4.2.6.8. So now you are inside
Hmm.
your
Right, sir.
server created here. And if you look at the IP here, 172.3.1.4.2.6.8, right? This is your private IP. And this is
Hmm.
exactly
Right.
that is written over here. So you are
Right,
now
sir.
inside your remote server. If you press ls here, you will notice there are no files. You can make a new directory using makedir. Let's say we name it WordPress website, ls. Now we have a folder WordPress website. I'll go inside this website. I'll create a file nano a.html and write hi. Just a second. Inside p tag, I'll write hi there. And there we go. We have a small file on my own remote server. So this is the simplest way to create a server on AWS, access it remotely and change files there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, unfortunately, this is not enough. This only what you did was bought a CPU and accessed it. But what do you do when you build your website on your computer? You install Bitnami, right? Or XAMPP or Nginx
Right.
or something else, right?
Right.
So what I have shown you is how you can easily set up a server on AWS, Ubuntu server on AWS, get SSH access to it, and log into that uh, remote server. Because it is an Ubuntu system, consider it not a cloud server, but a CPU whose access you have on your command line, which is an Ubuntu system. So if you search install Bitnami on Ubuntu, and it will give you step by step process, correct?
Right.
This is the exact step by step process that you will type on your command line to set up Bitnami or install WordPress or some React application or whatever you want. So the same commands that you will use on your computer it was running Ubuntu will be the same command you will be running here. If you want to launch an Nginx server instead of Bitnami, you will simply type Nginx install Ubuntu install Nginx. You will be shown the guide to install Nginx on Ubuntu 20.04, which is exactly the system that we are using. If you follow this exact step-by-step process, you will have set up your system very easily in just 2 or 3 more steps. If you want, I can show you this as well. Let me quickly go ahead so that we don't leave it halfway. So the command is very simple. And what you'll notice is the first link when I type these 3 words is Digital Oceans. That's why I said they are newcomer friendly, because Digital Oceans documentation is very clear, very appropriate, and top notch for newcomers. Okay. So that is why it comes as the first result. So I'll SSH. The first command was install Nginx. Yes, please go ahead and install it. The second command is adjusting the firewall. So firewall is basically a wall of fire that nobody can cross. Okay. If you want to cross it, you will have to open a port. We have already opened SSH port, which is 22 into 2. But you remember we also opened HTTP and HTTPS port.
Right, sir.
So we don't need to adjust the firewall because AWS already did it for us. Uh, the second command is check your web server if it's working or not. So yes, go ahead. It's already installed. So I typed the same command which was present here. High performance web server is running successfully. Superb. So what's the next? Now I simply go ahead and open my IP. So now if I go to AWS, copy my public IP and paste it, it is welcome to Nginx, right?
Right, sir.
Earlier, it was not even opening. So now I have successfully set up a server which is loading this simple website. What I can do now is change this website however I want. For example, now it is giving us more commands to learn. So what you can do is, uh, learn from DigitalOcean's documentation. But just to give you a glimpse of what you can do now, if I access this very specific folder, it has okay nanoindex.html. What I write here is p tag hello world. Control X, Y, enter. Oh, permission denied. Sudo chmod. So I'm using the same command sudo chmod index.html. Right. Mm, touch index.html, sudo nano index.html. This should do it. Yep. Don't worry, I'm not explaining what I'm doing right now is because you will learn about these things when you read DigitalOcean documentation. I'm simply setting up a index.html file where I write hello world and saving it. Now what I'll do is I'll go to my IP and refresh it, and there we go, hello world is here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done is I created a file index.html in a specific place inside my server, and when I go to my IP, it opens that index.html page, and you can customize it as much as you want. Same thing goes for WordPress website, any advanced website. As long as you give it the right files, it will open it and show it here. Any questions, Abhinav?
Yes, sir. Like whichever file or folders we are creating, the physical means the folders are located in that server, right?
Yes.
So means none of the folder of files will be on our computer, right?
No, it is on your remote server.
Okay, okay, sure, sir.
And if
Okay.
you want to download it, copy it, you can easily do it. It's like if you want to copy file from your friend's computer to your computer, you insert a pen drive, copy and paste, right?
Right, right.
Similarly, if you want to copy file from remote server to local server, there are different commands, SCP and others, rsync, but those are advanced things. Right now, what I've showed you is how you can create a server on AWS, how you can modify files on it, how you can set up an actual Nginx server so that anyone can access your website, and also host an index.html which you loaded on your IP, public IP. If you want to link this public IP to, let's say, your own website, abhinavdube.com, well, you have to link the domain to the IP. For that, you can use GoDaddy or some other service. Even AWS provides the same thing.
Okay, sure, sir. Understood. Got it.
Any other question?
No, not yet.
All right, let me stop recording.